All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm so excited for this deep dive today.
Me too.
We are talking all about repetition,
Yes.
which is something that, you think about, you're like, oh, yeah, repetition. It's
Yeah, you don't think about it.
it's
Yeah.
not that big of a deal. But when you really start to like peel back the layers,
It's everywhere.
it's everywhere. It's kind of wild.
And in everything.
Yeah. So we're working with excerpts today from a source called The Uniqueness of Repetition.
Right.
And
Great source.
yeah, it is a really interesting source. So I'm excited to kind of dig into this. And we're going to be looking at repetition
Okay.
in all these different areas.
Yeah.
Psychology, learning, art, personal growth.
Yeah, which is interesting because it is something that you can use to learn a new skill,
Yes.
but it's also something that you can use to kind of get stuck in a rut.
Oh, that's so true.
So we're going to look at kind of both sides of that.
Yeah, the duality of repetition.
But starting with, I think one of the most obvious places that we see repetition is in music.
Yes, absolutely.
Like when you think about it, almost all music is based on repetition.
Totally.
You have a melody and then
Yeah.
you repeat that melody and then you add some variations.
Yeah.
And then you have a chorus and you repeat the chorus and then you add a verse and then you go back to the chorus.
Yeah, you've got the hook.
Yeah, the
That
hook.
gets stuck in your head.
Right, and that's why it gets stuck in your head because it's repeated over and over again.
Yeah.
And the author of The Uniqueness of Repetition actually talks about how, like, Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, like,
Oh, yeah.
uses this so masterfully, like that da-da-dum, that motif.
That's so iconic.
Right, and it's repeated and transformed throughout the entire piece, and that's what gives it that sense of unity and drama.
Oh, that's a really cool way to look at it.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. And I mean, it makes sense. When we think about music, that's kind of the thing that we enjoy about it. It's like that familiarity that comes with repetition.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because, we've talked about music, but then like when you start to think about like learning new skills,
Yeah,
that's another place where repetition is so important.
absolutely. Like, think about learning to ride a bike.
Uh,
You fall down a bunch of times.
so many times.
You get back up, you do it again and again and again, and eventually you get it.
And then you just know how to ride a bike forever.
It's like magic, but it's not magic, it's repetition. It's
Yeah.
literally like building those neural pathways in your brain.
Watering your brain.
Yeah, so every time you repeat an action, you're strengthening those connections in your brain.
That's pretty wild.
It is.
So I like to think about it as like every time I'm practicing something,
Yeah,
I'm essentially like sculpting my own brain.
that's a great way to put it.
And so we've talked about music and we've talked about learning new skills.
Yeah.
But the uniqueness of repetition also dives into repetition in art.
Oh, yeah, big time.
And it's not just about like creating pretty patterns or, it's more than that.
It's about so much more than that.
Yeah.
Like, it's about conveying meaning and emotion.
Right.
Like if you think about Andy Warhol's Campbell's soup cans,
Mm-hmm.
like that repetition isn't just like pop art kitsch.
Yeah.
It's a commentary on like consumerism mass production.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like using that repetition to make you think.
It's forcing you to think about it.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. That's a really good example. Yeah. That makes total sense.
And I think it's also interesting to think about how repetition can be used to evoke certain emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Like you think about traditional Japanese art,
Okay.
those woodblock prints,
Mm-hmm.
with the repetitive patterns and how they often evoke a sense of calm and tranquility.
Right. Like a meditative state almost.
Yeah, it's like the repetition itself is transmitting that feeling,
Mm.
which is interesting because that ties into the psychological power of repetition.
Right.
Like, think about the comfort you feel in your daily
Oh,
routines.
my gosh. Yes.
That morning cup of coffee, the walk you take every evening.
My evening walk is like my favorite part of the day. It's so grounded.
It is. It's like that predictability can be really soothing.
Yes, especially in like a chaotic world. It's nice to have those little routines.
Absolutely.
But I also wonder, can we get stuck in a rut?
Oh, totally.
Could too much repetition make us resistant to change?
Definitely. And the uniqueness of repetition talks about how this tendency for repetition to create comfort
Yeah.
can also lead to negative patterns.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, like we find ourselves procrastinated or, reaching for that extra cookie even though we know it's not good for us.
Right. Or hitting the snooze button over and over again.
Exactly. And it's because those habits are ingrained through repetition too.
So it's like the same mechanism that gives
Yeah.
us comfort and helps us learn is also the same one that's like keeping us
Yeah,
in these bad habits.
absolutely.
So how do we break free?
Well, the source talks about conscious repetition.
Okay.
So using that same power of repetition
Uh,
to build new positive habits.
like retraining our brains.
Exactly. It's like paging a new road in your brain.
I like that.
So imagine you want to start meditating daily.
Yeah.
At first, it's going to feel weird,
Totally.
unfamiliar.
Yeah.
But with each repetition, with each mindful breath,
Mm-hmm.
you're reinforcing that pathway, making it easier and easier.
So it's like fake it till you make it.
Kind of, but it's more like repeat it till you believe it.
Okay. I like that even better.
Yeah, so it's not just about repeating actions, it's about repeating the right actions.
The actions that are going to move us towards our goals.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And that's one of the most empowering things about understanding repetition is that it's not just this force that acts upon us.
Yeah.
It's something we can learn to control.
We can harness it. I love that. Okay, this has been such a cool deep dive.
I know, right?
It really makes you look at repetition in a whole new light.
It does.
It's like everywhere, from building symphonies to breaking bad habits.
Yeah.
It's just this underlying current, shaping our experience.
So as you go about your day, I want you to notice
Yeah.
the ways that repetition is at play in your life.
Pay attention.
Yeah. What songs get stuck in your head? And what routines comfort you?
Yeah.
Which ones maybe you want to rethink?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's a fascinating exploration, and you'll start to see the world a little differently.
I love that. And maybe you'll even be inspired to create something new, using the power of repetition to build something beautiful and meaningful.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everybody.
Thanks for listening.